Aye, the lament of the crown. The crystal spires of Kelterwin rang with a sound no one had heard in 3 generations. Morning bells. They were not rung for death, not yet, but for something far worse in the eyes of the Velari continuum, the possible end of a royal bloodline. Queen Salith Vera, sovereign of the Velari and last living descendant of the first brood, stood alone beneath the vaulted dome of the Hall of Genetic Accord. Bioluminescent constellations drifted across the ceiling, mapping the ancient migrations of her people through the galaxy. Normally, the sight comforted her. Today, it felt like a eulogy. She has no mate, intoned the high geneticist, Eshkaroth, his 4 eyes dim with solemnity. All viable pairings have been exhausted. Bloodlines converge too closely. Mutation risk exceeds 87%. Salith's hands clenched around the railing. Her silver-blue skin shimmered faintly, betraying the emotional surge she fought to suppress. A Velari Queen was trained from birth to master her instincts, but despair had a way of seeping through even the strongest discipline. No mate, echoed the gathered counselors, their voices layered in harmonic resonance. No heir. The Velari were not a populous species. They had survived by precision, not numbers, by careful genetic stewardship and rigid reproductive law. Royal bloodlines were even more tightly controlled. The Queen's offspring would not simply rule. They would stabilize the psychic lattice that connected Velari minds across star systems. Without an heir, that lattice would fracture. Without the lattice, Velari civilization would collapse into isolated enclaves within a century. Salith turned slowly, her gaze sweeping the council chamber. "We have allied with 100 species," she said, her voice calm but edged with steel. "You tell me none are compatible?" Eshkaroth lowered his head. "We have tested them all, Majesty. Your biology is specific. Your reproductive cycle requires a neural empathic resonance that only Velari males of the first brood possess. And they are all dead," Salith finished quietly. A silence fell, heavy, reverent, suffocating. The bells outside continued to toll. 2. The human factor. The Velari had not intended to encounter humanity. They were a late-discovered species, still fractured by internal conflict when the continuum first detected their electromagnetic emissions. Primitive, volatile, and biologically chaotic, humans had been classified as observation only. Then came the Carson War. When the insectoid Carson collective erupted from subspace and began consuming star systems indiscriminately, the Velari found themselves stretched thin. Their fleets were elegant but few, their tactics reliant on psychic coordination that faltered under Carson neural interference. Humanity, by contrast, responded with brutal adaptability. They retrofitted mining ships into kinetic battering rams, weaponized radiation, and developed decentralized command structures that functioned even when communication collapsed. Within 5 years, humans had not only halted the Carson advance in their sector, they had pushed it back. The Velari took notice. An alliance followed, uneasy, experimental, but effective. And now, in the shadow of royal extinction, Queen Salith found herself considering a thought so heretical it bordered on madness. A non-Velari mate. The Genetic Council had dismissed the idea immediately. Cross-species reproduction was not merely taboo, it was considered impossible. The Velari reproductive system was as much psychic as physical. Except, there is one anomaly, Eshkaroth said reluctantly, drawing Salith from her thoughts. A theoretical possibility. The Queen's eyes snapped to him. "Speak." "The humans," he said. "Specifically, a subset with unusually high neural plasticity and empathic capacity. We observed it during joint operations. Some humans resonate." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. "Resonate," Salith repeated. Not fully, Eshkaroth admitted, but enough to register on Velari empathic sensors. It should not be possible. Their minds are chaotic, fragmented, yet some exhibit an adaptability that mimics proto-lattice formation. Meaning? Asked Counselor Threx. Eshkaroth exhaled. Meaning, under extreme circumstances, a human might form a temporary resonance with Her Majesty. Silence. Then outrage. This is sacrilege, one counselor cried. A human breeding with a queen? Another hissed. They are mammals, short-lived, emotionally unstable. Salith raised a hand, and the chamber fell quiet. If this is possible, she said slowly, why was it not presented sooner? Because, Eshkaroth said, it would require a volunteer. The process would be dangerous, possibly fatal, for both parties. Salith closed her eyes. Danger had never stopped her before. 3. The volunteer Lieutenant Elias Mercer had not expected his day to include standing in a room made of living crystal, facing an alien queen whose presence pressed against his mind like gravity. He had definitely not expected to hear the words, "We ask you to consider mating with our queen." Elias stared at Ambassador Chin, certain he had misheard. "I'm sorry," he said. "You want me to what?" Chin looked just as stunned, though she tried to hide it behind diplomatic composure. The Velari have a unique request. Salith studied the human before her with equal intensity. He was unremarkable by human standards, average height, dark hair, eyes that held more curiosity than fear. But beneath that surface, she sensed it. A mind unusually receptive, its neural pathways flexible, almost luminous. He could hear her thoughts. Not clearly, but enough. That's her. Elias muttered before he could stop himself. The room froze. Salith's eyes widened. "You perceive me." Elias swallowed. Not like voices. More like pressure. Emotions. You're sad. And tired. A collective gasp echoed. Eshkaroth leaned forward, awe overtaking his skepticism. "Untrained resonance," he whispered. "Remarkable." Elias rubbed the back of his neck. "Look, I don't know what kind of prank this is, but if you're asking me to mate with a queen of an alien civilization, I'm gonna need a lot more explanation." And so they gave it to him. The extinction risk. The lattice. The danger. The possibility that the process could kill him or fail entirely. When they finished, Elias sat in stunned silence. "This isn't a job," he said finally. "It's still life." Salith stepped closer. "I will not compel you," she said softly. "If you refuse, we will seek another path, even if none exists." Elias met her gaze. He thought of Earth, of endless political squabbles and wars over diminishing resources. He thought of the Carson worlds he had seen stripped to bone. He thought of the way Salith's sorrow had bled into him without words. "How long would I have?" he asked. "If successful," Eshkaroth said, "your lifespan may increase. Velari physiology is generous." Elias huffed a weak laugh. "Of course it is." He looked at Salith again. "I'll do it," he said. The chamber erupted. 4. The bonding trial preparation took weeks. Elias underwent genetic modification to stabilize his immune system and expand neural capacity. He trained with Velari empaths, learning to still his mind, to listen rather than project. The more he practiced, the stronger the connection grew. Salith watched him often, from a distance at first, then closer. She was fascinated by his contradictions, his irreverence paired with deep empathy, his fear braided tightly with resolve. "You joke when you are afraid," she observed one evening as they walked through the Garden of Echoes. "Yeah," Elias admitted. "If I stopped joking, I might panic." She considered this a useful strategy. Their bond deepened not through touch, but through shared presence. They meditated together, their minds brushing, then intertwining. Salith felt something she had never known before: unpredictability.
It was terrifying. It was exhilarating.
The night of the bonding trial arrived. The ritual chamber pulsed with energy as ancient mechanisms awakened. Elias lay at the center, Salith beside him, their hands clasped. "If at any point you wish to stop," she said, "say so." He smiled faintly. "I've faced worse odds." The ritual began. Pain exploded through Elias's skull as the empathic lattice surged, seeking alignment. He screamed, then bit it back, forcing himself to focus on Salith, her presence, her steadiness. "I am here," she projected. "So am I," he replied. Their minds collided, not violently, but forcefully, like two rivers merging. Memories bled across the divide. Elias saw Velari history unfold in living color. Salith felt rain on earth, the ache of human loss, the fierce love of a species that burned bright and brief. The chamber shook, resonance stabilizing. Eshkaroth shouted. Then silence. Elias collapsed unconscious. Salith remained standing, breath ragged, heart pounding. For a terrible moment, no one spoke. Then Eshkaroth's sensors chimed. "Neural lattice integrated," he whispered. "The queen, she has a mate." The consequences. Elias woke 3 days later. The first thing he noticed was clarity. His thoughts felt sharper, deeper, like a fog had lifted he hadn't known was there. The second thing he noticed was Salith, seated beside him, her expression unreadable. "Hey," he croaked. "Did we save the galaxy?" She smiled, a small, genuine curve of her lips that sent a strange warmth through his chest. "You survived," she said, which was not guaranteed. "Figures," he muttered. "So, what happens now?" "Now," Salith said, "we face the consequences." They came swiftly. Some Velari hailed Elias as a savior, a bridge between species. Others called him an abomination, a contaminant. Extremist factions plotted rebellion, claiming the Queen had tainted the bloodline. On Earth, news of the Union sparked chaos. Some saw it as humanity's ascension to the galactic stage. Others called Elias a traitor, accusing him of selling out his species. Elias bore it with grim determination. "I didn't do this for politics," he told Salith one night as protests flared on distant screens. "I did it because it was right." She took his hand. "And that," she said, "is why you were chosen." 6. The heir. Months passed. The lattice stabilized. And then life. Eshkaroth delivered the news with trembling hands. "Majesty, the scans confirm it. You are with child." Salith closed her eyes, emotion crashing through her with a force that left her breathless. Elias laughed, a sound halfway between disbelief and joy. "Guess we really did it." The child would not be purely Velari or human. It would be something new, a hybrid mind, capable of bridging psychic and technological civilizations. Hope. But hope attracts enemies. The rebel faction struck during the convergence ceremony, attempting to assassinate Salith and destroy the heir before it could be born. Elias stood between them without hesitation, taking a plasma bolt meant for the queen. He survived, but barely. As he lay in recovery, Salith refused to leave his side. "You risked everything," she whispered. "So did you," he replied weakly. "Guess we're even." 7. The ending. A new dawn years later. The morning bells of Calteruin rang again. This time, they sang celebration. The heir, Erin Verimercer, stood at the balcony beside her parents, her eyes glowing with both Velari luminescence and human warmth. When she smiled, The psychic lattice thrummed with unprecedented harmony. Species across the continuum felt it. Unity. Queen Salith looked out over her people, then at Elias. Older now, but still very much alive, his lifespan extended beyond any human expectation. "You changed our fate," she said quietly. "We changed it," he corrected. Below them, Velari and humans stood side by side, no longer allies of convenience, but kin. Once, a queen had despaired because she had no mate. Now she had a family, and the galaxy had a future.